All right. Good evening, everybody. Hello, happy Friday night. It is the weekend, and it is time for a press row hangout. How are you? I am Rich Grisham. I am joined by my two good friends. Up first, from Seattle, Washington, Pasta Padre himself, Mr. Brian Weedeye. Brian, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, except for the sweltering heat.
Oh no,
Yeah, it's hot here, and
there's
we're not really equipped for that in Washington. We don't have air conditioners. Not many people have pools. So this extended. Sometimes we get into the 90s here, but this extended like a 10-day forecast, everything in the 90s. It's it's really It's hurting right now.
you have
It's not easy to deal
you
with.
have you have air conditioning in the Weedeye estate?
No, I got fans, and it cools down enough at night that I can really cool down. Especially this house where I was living last, you really couldn't. I'd be working on my computer in like 100-degree heat. But where I'm at now, I can cool the house down really well at night, but it just the sun beating on us all day. It's rough. But whatever. I'll deal with it. It's only a few weeks out of the year, really.
And up next, we have our good friend from That Sports Gamer, Mr. TJ Larman. TJ, as always, welcome, sir.
Hey, Rich. I had the most terrifying moment yesterday after we left the EA press event.
Uh-oh, what happened?
So, as I got to my car, I put my address into the GPS because, look, I don't like the city. I don't like crossing these bridges, going through these tunnels, or any of that nonsense. So I put my address in, and it says 6.5 hours. It's like 6.5 hours? How is this humanly possible? I'm like literally 30 minutes away. Then I realized I was on walking directions, which would have been a much more interesting way to get home. But luckily, I made it into and out of the city all right, and still New Jersey is better than New York. But that's an argument for another show.
I've never understood driving into New York. Like, there's no good way to drive into New York City. It doesn't matter whether you go Lincoln Tunnel, Holland Tunnel, GW Bridge, Brooklyn Bridge. It doesn't matter. But every time I take the train, which is when I go in the city, I go probably 25 times a year. I take the train, and it's perfect every time. Why would you ever drive? Trains are so easy.
It's first off, there's no trains anywhere remotely near me. I'm not going to take public transportation. Get out of here. I don't want these bus people. My wife takes them every day. I don't want to deal with that. And I'm right down the street from being in the city. Holland Lincoln Tunnel. That's what it's all about.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see. We got a lot to talk about tonight. Up first, TJ and I, along with a bunch of other folks, including Subit Sarkar, spent some time at the EA Sports Summer Showcase yesterday. I guess technically it's not the EA Sports Summer Showcase. It was the EA Summer Showcase because they had Plants vs. Zombies for the PS4, and they had Dragon Age Inquisition. And by the way, if you are interested in Dragon Age Inquisition, if you listen to the first 45 seconds of the summary of today's show, when Sumit and TJ and I are talking, you get to hear very loudly in the background some poor woman getting crushed by swords and a monster and stuff like that. It was brutal. Thank goodness that it didn't last that long. But yeah, we were at the Summer Showcase, and today's Press Row podcast, the one that launched today, featured some interviews with one of the lead developers on the skills trainer for Madden. So he walks us through the presentation. Featured a presentation and an interview with Santiago Jaramillo, who's one of the leaders of the FIFA 15 team, as well as a conversation that I had with NHL 15's Sean Ramjagsingh. But TJ, you and I got to sit down and actually play some hands-on for the games as well. So let's start just with that. We started with Madden. We didn't play a whole lot of 2-on-2, but let's just talk about that for a few minutes. I was completely out of sorts. When we sat down to play, it was you were the Niners, I was the Eagles, and I was just completely out of sorts. I mean, we play regularly, you, me, Brian, and a few other of our friends in our Press for Madden League. So I'm still playing Madden 25 a lot. And I'm used to the interface, the playbook, the way you call plays. Let it be known, if you didn't already know it, the way that you call plays in the new Madden is different. and not just a different look, like a different set of mechanisms to get to the plays and things like that. So I was out of sorts, and the actual playbook itself was different. The formations were different. So it's a whole lot of excuses for why I did not play very well. But TJ, give me your impressions, from playing the you versus me for 10 or 15 minutes. What'd you think about what you saw?
Yeah, I agree. The most confusing thing was just the play call screen. Now that they've changed it up from the normal 3-box that we're all used to. I think they tried to change it once before in the past, and that lasted for a year, maybe 2, and they switched it back. Hopefully, at some point they end up doing that again, just because I think that's like a staple of Madden is the 3-up play box. But I mean, if this is actually going to be a better way, I think even when you were picking the plays, you can only see one at a time, right? Am I crazy? I feel like you can only see the play art for one play at a time, but you'd see the play names above and below.
It was. People asked me that, and a bunch of people tweeted me, like, what was it like? What was it like? It's like, when you've got all this music playing and you got people standing around, and you're looking and you're sitting down, and I'm also trying to record it. Like, there's so much going on. It was difficult to take in. I think there was only one play art on there as well, or if there was one, there might have been a couple smaller ones around it, but it was distinctly different how you look at that stuff, and I'm not used to it. And I'm not saying it's bad. It's not. It's just different, and I'm going to have to learn how to use it.
Yeah, and then I also spent a lot of time on defense, mainly because I got a forced fumble for a touchdown.
That's true.
Using all those cool new R2 to jump the snap. But wasn't that like a Madden 06 or 07 feature?
NCAA and Madden feature, yeah.
So I remember screwing it up on Xbox because it was a different button. I'd always just jump off sides. So that's a lot of stuff to process on the screen at once, like hitting the R2 to get the snap right, and then it pops up perfect, and then X pops on top of the guy's head, or a circle, and then you have the tackle cones every time you switch a guy. So I feel like that's stuff we're gonna turn that off probably not too long after we get into it.
I was gonna say, what difficulty did you guys play on? Because I believe. Okay, well, I had read that All Pro, All Madden would turn those off automatically, but maybe
they were
triggered on for the event.
Exactly. I mean, this is not a final build of the game. With any of these kind of games, you never know what you really have. You'll ask them, unless they say, like at E3 last year, for example, the NCAA game was the final game. So you knew that. But like none of the games there yesterday were final. In fact, the FIFA game was an alpha build. NHL, I think, was probably the closest to final, although Madden was close as well, too.
It has to be. It has to be at this point.
Yeah.
I think they said they were wrapping up in a couple weeks to.
But I mean, I expected these to be all of the E3 builds. I was surprised that there were some newer builds that they had there. So, but you bring up a good point, TJ. Is there's a lot going on the screen. Like when you're walking up, you've now got the first, or the down and distance indicator on the ground to your left, which looks cool. I like it. The play calling is extremely different, so you got to go through that. And then once the play is snapped on defense, when the plays are running, there's like cones flashing everywhere. There's stuff moving around. There's indicators. Like there is a lot going on the screen. And yeah, I was just completely out of sorts. And I know that that's fine, and I know that I'll get used to it. I'm not complaining about it. It was just most years when I pick up a new Madden, I'm instantly comfortable. Mm-hmm. And this year I was like, whoa, I got to figure stuff out. And again, I think one of the reasons is because I'm still playing today, within our league, and just the different ways that the formations are sent to you. There's a whole way of picking games or picking plays called concept, which I dabbled in, but because I didn't know what was going on, I struggled a little with it. So, but I will say it looked very good, like very crisp visually, really nice looking animations. When you scored that touchdown, there was no cut scene. It all blended really nicely together. Brian, you've seen a lot of the videos as well, so I mean, I don't think we saw anything that you haven't seen. But just visually, I mean, this is looking really strong. I mean, Brian, with what you've seen, does that mesh with what you've seen looking at some of the gameplay videos that have come out?
To an extent, yeah. I mean, a lot of what you talked about too, with like the visual indicators and stuff, that doesn't appeal to me. It probably doesn't appeal to a lot of the more people who are accustomed to the game. Now, you have to understand that's built there basically to teach people or to assist them and help them play defense. So that's okay as long as, like we said, it can be turned off and all that. So, I don't think visually is necessarily. Yeah, there are ways to improve the game. I think people would like to see the sidelines improve too. That's not happening yet. I'm not sure if visually that's the area of the game that people are really most concerned about, though.
Yeah, and the pregame stuff looked good. The new presentation they put in front of that. No coin toss. That was gone. The only thing that was a little jarring, and we'll talk more about it in the NHL section, when they were doing the little player highlights, and I think it was Nick Foles was coming on the field.
Yep.
They had a little highlight package of real life Nick Foles making passes set against the digital Nick Foles standing next to it, and
yeah,
it was weird seeing real stuff intermixed with the fake stuff. Yeah. Oh, and Kaepernick's tattoos, they looked cool.
Yeah, and then you'll lose that, of course, with guys you draft in franchise mode, or maybe you'll get sick of it after playing with the same team for a couple of seasons. But also in terms of when we're talking about visuals, I guess, the player likenesses, the facial scans and stuff, that's really important, I think, to nailing authenticity and the way people feel when they play the game and the attachment they have to these players. And so we know they're improving on that a lot.
Yeah, and I zoomed in on the jerseys and stuff, and that'll look good. You really felt like there was padding under the jerseys. It didn't just look like a sweater guys were
Tell
wearing.
Me this, TJ, and I would suspect you'd be the type of guy who would ask this question. I guess they don't need a screenshot feature anymore because the PS4, Xbox One still doesn't have a screenshot feature. I think they're adding it, so I'm guessing that it's still not a feature in Madden, right? Or we may not know.
What, to take screenshots?
Yeah, to take screenshots. Like NCAA allowed you to. It was always ridiculous they left that out, but now the consoles are building it in. I guess it's not that important. But when they focus on visuals so much and the game looks so good, it's unfortunate when you can't even capture that.
Yeah.
Now, I was focused really on making sure that I talked to the developers. So with Madden, as soon as I had an opportunity to sit down and get a walkthrough and a presentation with Donnie Doberling, I believe, Danny, excuse me, and he walked us through the new skills trainer and stuff. So TJ and I didn't play Madden for very long because I wanted to get that. The skills trainer, they're really putting a lot on the skills trainer this year. I mean, they sent the leader of that mode to New York to walk a bunch of people through it. There were several articles I saw today published about it.
Okay, so sorry, Rich, you're talking about the gauntlet, right?
Well, I'm talking about the skills trainer and the gauntlet. They're sort of combined. Like skills trainer is a series of stuff, and then you run through the gauntlet. And so, on one hand, it's good, right? The whole point of the skills trainer and the gauntlet is to teach people not only how to play the game, but strategically how to play football. And the example that they used, and you can hear it in the show, is where they demonstrate what cover 2 is, what it means, what different players do, what its strengths are, and what its weaknesses are. And then your job is to attack a cover 2 with particular types of plays that are effective against it and run it. And there's a whole series of all these things that you go through, and then you run through the gauntlet. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. We have talked a lot on the show over the past few years about how games do a poor job of teaching you how to play the actual game. TJ, after seeing the presentation and playing some of it, do you think this is going to work?
Yeah, I like that stuff, and I really liked it last year too, and especially comparing that to like a UFC where that stuff really didn't teach you as much as you wanted. I think they were saying they're going to have 46 of the training things this year, so that's pretty good, and I feel like you're going to learn a lot more about football now. It seems like this year, with all the cones and everything, they're really trying to take the average Madden player or a good Madden player just up to that next level of seeing the stuff that it's on the screen and they're just not seeing it normally. I think we were talking. I don't know if we talked about it at the wrap up, where you can buy the Madden Tips guide, you can watch the Madden Tips guys do videos, but having that hands-on to do it and just do it over and over and over again, like the way I learned read option. I know I'm going to run this play. I need to utilize it. I'm going to go into the training and just do it over and over again and learn it. And now with all that stuff about reading, if a linebacker is going to cover the flat or if he's going to cover the man, I mean, all that stuff's going to help everybody become better.
The other thing that is really becoming interesting to me, we're 5 weeks, 6 weeks away from release at the most. I mean, it releases on August 26th, so I think we're less than 6 weeks. If I was good at reading calendars, I could probably figure that out for sure. But we're not that far away, and there's not that much time to reveal a whole lot more information about Madden. Brian, you posted a video, or you posted a piece today that showed the Gauntlet video.
Yeah.
The reactions to the video were pretty muted. The reactions that I've gotten to the 25 or 30-minute walkthrough that Danny did were very positive, because you can hear in his voice the excitement and what it really is. But if this is one of the things that EA is pushing as a big new mode, it doesn't feel to me like this is something the community at large is getting that excited about. Whether they should or shouldn't is another conversation. Brian.
Well, yeah, I think the issue is timing, and putting this Gauntlet thing, which is kind of an arcadey thing too, out before you release kind of substantial information more on like connected franchise stuff like that. We're in early July, and you're releasing on this mode that its appeal is going to be limited naturally, because again, you're trying to reach a demographic that maybe struggles at the game, doesn't understand football as much. So are those people the ones who are paying attention to Madden news 6 weeks in advance? Probably not. I think the wise thing might have been to put out this kind of mode information and videos on that a week or two before the game comes out. Because really, it's not. Nobody is sitting here saying, I'm going to have to buy Madden now because it has this Gauntlet mode and it has these skills challenges. Now, it's important. Like we said, you can't leave the game without a tutorial / skills building type mode like NBA Live did. You can't do that. And then you can't just slap on something that's tedious and boring like UFC did, because no one wants to sit through it and play it. So I don't mind that they're going with an arcade kind of route here and different challenge type things. I think that's smart. But marketing it to the crowd that's paying attention to Madden at this point in the year, I'm not sure it's really the effective route to go.
So, and we're going to talk a little more after we talk about NHL and FIFA about sort of the way that these games are being rolled out from a PR perspective. But the Gauntlet mode itself looked really fun. I mean, I'm not sitting here telling you that I'm going to spend a lot of time in the Gauntlet, but we saw a couple of examples of the types of the types of challenges that you'll be put through, and then there's the boss mode, and the one that we saw was kicking a field goal in a hurricane with 225-mile-an-hour winds and trying to aim it the right way. And by the way, there's a new kicking meter again this year. I'm not sure that I'm thrilled about that. So as a way to have fun in the game, which also teaches you how to play it and then has some, fun, not serious craziness to it, like I really can see this being cool. Again, I don't know whether I'll spend any time in it, a lot of time. I like what they're trying to do, and I really think that it will be kind of fun to try to kick field goals in the hurricane and run your guy through media day, running over, cameramen and stuff like that. Again, long term, we know what I'm going to be playing. I'm going to be playing Madden Press Row Podcast League online franchise. That's where I'm going to spend my time. We know, TJ, you're going to be doing that, and a lot of Ultimate Team. Brian, we know you're going to be playing in the league and maybe dabbling in other stuff. But as a new thing. I can see the gauntlet mode being some kind of a fun thing where you can, through the social hooks that it has, say, yep, I beat this thing, I beat that thing. I don't think it has a ton of extensive appeal, but I can see it. I can see it being something fun. TJ, do you agree, or do you think there's more or less to it than I'm mentioning?
No, I agree. But you know who's going to love it? The Ultimate Team folks, because you get, I think it's either a free card or a free pack for, I think right now all you have to do is just get bronze in each one.
Right.
They did that. They did that with the challenges in NCAA, right?
Yeah, last year it was in NCAA you had to get gold, and same with Madden. You had to get gold, but now you can just get bronze and move on.
Well, it's smart. Yeah, you got to reward people. Again, it's another way to, if you're trying to add a fun element to it, to get people to actually play through it and improve themselves in that manner. Yeah, giving them an incentive that costs them nothing. It makes a lot of sense. Not only does it cost them nothing, it might get people to play Ultimate Team that wouldn't have otherwise.
All right, so that was Madden. Let's talk some FIFA. Again, we on the show you'll hear an extensive presentation that one of the leaders of the game, Santiago Jaramillo, went through some of the key gameplay improvements, some of the key visual improvements, the emotion of the players, the pitch itself being degraded, some of the new ball physics, the crowd. FIFA continues to just really, in my opinion, go deeper and finer into some of the things that continue to make the game more appealing to people who love international soccer. TJ, you and I played a game. You actually played 2, if not 3 full games.
I played 3 games. I think I played everybody in the building.
Yeah. So talk to me about your experience. Did you like it, love it, hate it? What's going on?
I kind of loved it. We talked about how the ball is not stuck to your foot anymore. It's a thing on the field that you're interacting with now. It's not just stuck to you, and it's not just going to get randomly sucked into your foot or anything. So you really have to pay close attention to what you're doing with the ball, keeping it moving between your guys. It's going to get kicked away. It's going to take funny bounces like me and Submit had, where it had crazy topspin. The lighting looks great in the game. The field degradation is interesting. I don't know how, they said it was based off of the physics of the game. As we were playing, I was trying to follow my guy's footsteps to see if I actually saw where it got degraded. I didn't really see that, but I just felt I sat down and I started playing, and I was like, this looks like the game I was watching a couple days ago on the World Cup. The screen was bright. The field looked alive. I came back, and I was playing a bunch of pro clubs tonight, and he was right. It looks like some fake AstroTurf that's just laying on the ground. It's just a layer. It's not as alive as even the new field is going to be with the degradation. I'm very interested to see how that, I think it was called the player emotion thingy thing, where everybody's linked together. I want to see if that's going to be more than we're just going to have the same reactions to something because something happened. I want to see Chicharito runs off sides 3 times in a game, and he gets called for it. I want to see them stop going to him because they know that's a liability that's going to stop them. Or a guy missed 3 shots. Now we're not going to go to him because we know he's not putting the ball in the net. I want to see if that's the kind of stuff that's actually going to go in with that whole new engine that they're putting in. But it looks fun. It felt good.
Yeah, I have so much respect for what the FIFA team does that I am more than willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't understand how the emotional connection between the players is actually going to impact. Like the example that he gave, which I did not appreciate in any way whatsoever, was a Everton-Liverpool derby where Everton scored an own goal. And he showed, using the debug code, how the spirits were raised of the Liverpool side and they were lowered on the Everton side, and Tim Howard was particularly crushed. Now, what is that actually going to mean? A couple, 2 or 3 years ago in Madden, you would have players that would get on these hot streaks and these cold streaks, and it certainly felt like particularly quarterbacks, when they got on these cold streaks, were just... It was really, really hard to play the game. And I'm just curious how this emotional connection between all of the players is going to actually impact the game.
And then you have things like, we've discussed this, and email thread also mentioned it. Madden doesn't feel like it has a home field advantage, right?
Right. That's right.
If anything, our records in our leagues we tend to get better records on the road for some reason.
Yeah.
But EA claims there's code built in to make teams play a little better at home or rattle the opposing team a little bit, and we just don't see that actually materialize. So it's interesting because you don't want to be stuck out there on the pitch because of one bad moment and your whole team falls apart. Because that's not fair either. That doesn't always happen. It might happen, like Brazil. That situation can happen, but it's so rare. It's so rare.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it'd be nice if you feel like you've got some momentum in a game as opposed to, because in games you generally don't feel like momentum is a factor, but it should be. And player confidence and how the crowd is affecting them, all of that stuff should factor in to an extent. But yeah, it's a balancing issue whether you go too far one way or you don't go far enough.
I know when TJ and I played our match, it was really good. TJ won. I had a couple of opportunities and I banged one off of the woodwork. It was a really beautiful game. I mean, it's hard to describe FIFA 15 without saying basically, well, it looks better. The lighting is stronger, the crowds are even better, and it plays great. I mean, TJ, am I wrong? I mean, it's FIFA. It looks spectacular, and I can't wait to get my hands on it.
Yeah, that's really been the problem with FIFA since FIFA. I mean, it's not really a problem, but since like FIFA 12 or FIFA 13, there hasn't really been a big back of the box feature because the game's at such a high point already that there's not going to be anything they're going to do that's going to drastically change something. I mean, they put in the engines, and that kind of screwed some stuff up and all that stuff, but...
we're asking for one, though. We've been asking for one.
And if you listen to today's Press Row podcast, you hear me directly plead with Santiago. And I say, please, I've been asking for it, and now I'm asking you. I'm face-to-face with you. Can you please give us an online franchise, some way where my friends and I can play in a persistent world? It doesn't need to even be multi-year. Just give us a league. Just give us something. And Santiago, who I've spoken to probably 3 times now, I think TJ at the various events. I know it's been twice, and I believe it's 3 times. No, yeah, it has been 3 times because I saw him 3 years ago, 2 years ago, or 2 years ago, last year, and this year. But anyway, long story short, he kind of looked at me and he's like, "Yes, we get this regularly. We would like to do it, but we will only do it if we can do it right. And to do it right is very expensive. It takes a lot of time and people, and that type of team does not exist in a vacuum when they're doing all of the other things. So we're definitely not getting it this year. And I continue to get the sense that it is just not a mode that is ever going to make it into FIFA, perhaps until and unless they ever extract Ultimate Team completely from FIFA and make it its own thing, which, who knows if that'll happen soon, 3 years from now, or never.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of time before that happens.
And I think it's going to be tough until they do something like make an MLS game, because each league is so completely different. Like, the MLS signing rules are one thing, and if you're going to have an online world, you're going to have to be able to designate those players that are going to get the higher salaries, that aren't going to hit your cap. I mean, if they're going to have to either break it out by league, or they're only going to put in the Premier League rules or something. So I'd rather them take them time and get it right than do something that...
Yeah, do a Premier League online franchise then.
Yeah.
I mean, there's ways around it. Now, if they're talking about we have to do it right and they have to make it exact to the real world and every league in the world, and that's probably not going to happen. And like you said, it's expensive, and if they're not going to monetize the mode in a way, then that's their justification for it. It's just too expensive, too difficult to build out, and it's unfortunate because we didn't hear, we got Online Dynasty and NCAA, we got it in NHL, Madden, NBA 2K has tried to do it, the show just started trying to do it. For the biggest franchise in the world to say it's too expensive or too difficult, I just have trouble buying that, really. it's one of the biggest selling games in the world every year, and I just don't want to hear that excuse really.
To me, it feels almost like it's just one of those things that it never happened, right? Like Madden has had a franchise mode and then an online franchise mode. I don't know when it was introduced, but we're talking 6, 7, 8, 9 years maybe. NCAA. I mean, MLB, to their credit, introduced online franchise this year. How well it works online or offline is a separate matter that we've talked about. But to bring in a brand new massive mode to FIFA, it just feels like that ship has sailed, right? If it were going to happen, it would have happened several years ago. But
it's just crazy to me that every major sports game has this now, except for FIFA.
But on the other hand, FIFA is totally different, right? Like to do an online franchise, you would need to have it be either extremely limited or extremely huge, right? Like if you were going to do it in the way of the real world, you would have a universe, and when I say in the real world, meaning not just the player transfers, right? Like Luis Suarez today went from Liverpool to FC Barcelona. You know what I mean? Like, there's no correlate for that in the NBA or the NFL, right? So you'd have to have a universe of teams, not just La Liga and Serie A and the French League and the Bundesliga and the Premier League, but you'd have to have not just player transfers, but you'd have to have relegation and promotion. So you'd have to have those, you'd have to have the championship, and you'd have to have the second tier and the third tier leagues and teams in all of those different European leagues. Like, you'd have to either do it that way, or you'd have to be like, all right, you can be one of the teams that is in the Premier League this year.
Yeah.
That is your whole universe of players, and there's no relegation and promotion, and it's basically just an online tournament. I would take that, by the way.
Yeah. So would I. I mean,
you have. We're just North America, also, but there's also all of Germany that buys the game, all of Spain that buys the game. I mean, you're going to piss off people if you just cut it down to one league.
Well, then just make it one league, but then have it like NCAA football, where you could move your conferences around, use whoever you want in this one league. It's not going to be exact to the real world, but I'm not sure. Most people maybe. I think everything you talked about there, Rich, with how they deal with transfers and such, that's probably too overwhelming for people.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's why I don't play the career
mode. We got
mode.
into that, and we tried to do that, and my head would explode.
Yeah, I can't even do the single player career mode because there's 2 weeks that I have to do the transfer stuff before I even play, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go play Ultimate Team, or I'm gonna play Pro Clubs because I'm not gonna.
I think you start with something more simplified,
right?
And then I think it's doable.
The best thing from my perspective, right? Like, one of the things that the only mode that didn't make it into the next gen games in FIFA last year was tournament. And tournament is a thing that not only lets you play like a tournament, but you can play a single season of the Premier League or a single season of the Bundesliga, and you don't have to worry about transfers, and there's nothing relegation or promotion. Like, at the end of the year, you win it, or you come in third or fifth, or you don't. So the one thing that I would see them being able to do in the short term is to take the tournament mode and take the tournament mode online, so that you could at least have a group of your friends play in that either tournament or season. And to me, this is along the lines of what I've been begging for, and the only franchise that has ever even introduced it is NBA Live, which is, let me set up a 7-game series, which will keep track of it, of the stats and things like that in NHL or NBA or MLB. Or let me set up a tournament in NHL or even MLB where I can just have 8 of my friends and we can play like a thing. Like, it doesn't have to be everything, but something would be cool. And it seems like these franchises either go for everything or nothing. Give us that slice.
Yeah, really, I just want to be in a group with other people. I want to be able to compare stats. I want to see our standings, right? and that's really it. You know, and maybe some presentation telling me what's happening with other people. You know, it doesn't have to be some overly complicated thing. I think if you could just allow people to group into something with their team, I think that would work, and I think it would really it would appease the people like us who really we kind of need that connection maybe with a game with FIFA. With TJ, it may be Ultimate Team. I love online seasons, but that's also just because of, like, it's showing me my record. It's giving me a way to move up and down, but I don't have that connection with you, Rich, or TJ, or anybody else like we do in the Madden franchise or in our NCAA dynasties, or all those things. You really lose that. No, we may not be the majority, but I think we also kind of drive where people go at the same time.
Yeah, and that's why our Madden League is so fun. Like, yeah, the Madden PS4 launch game is fun. It's not the world's greatest game, but here we are in July, ready to go into our 4th year of the playoffs because we're all connected and we're all having a fun experience.
I mean, some of us having a fun experience, but continue.
All right, NHL 15. Yes, I finally got my hands on it. TJ, you and I played it. TJ, you beat me at FIFA, but I crushed you in NHL. It was a 4-0 affair. I loved it and had nothing to do with the fact that I won. I am so impressed with NHL 15, with everything about it. I'm impressed by the presentation, the NBC stuff. I'm impressed by Doc Emmerich. I'm impressed by the way that the players interact with each other. Last year's NHL, I thoroughly enjoyed it, but man, it was a bit of a slugfest and some pinball. I mean, when you go after a guy and you hit him in NHL 15, you hit him, but you also absorb some of that, right? Like, there were a bunch of times, TJ, where I would go for, to take your guy out along the boards, and I would do it, but I wouldn't just automatically spin around, pick up the puck, and go. Like, I'd have to untangle myself, and half the time I couldn't do it in time, and your guy was able to pick up the puck or someone else was going to come in. At one point, we saw the puck rolling on its side down the ice, which I had never seen before. There's so much good going on in NHL 15. Should I be as hyped about it as I am right now, TJ?
I feel like you're as hyped about NHL as I am about FIFA, because we love those games so much.
Yeah, that's true.
They did have that weird thing where they had the real Doc and other guy pregame.
Yeah, see, they go in the opposite direction. Instead of the zombie Phil Simms and zombie Jim Nantz, they have the real Doc Emmerich and I think it's Tony Granato in front of the green screen doing the intro to the games.
Yeah, and it had it looks like you're playing NHL. What was the last one? 14?
Yeah.
It looks like it, but when you get on the ice, it's a completely different game. You have to play a lot slower, much more methodical. You're not just going to take Sidney Crosby and fly up the ice and go shoot. It's much more of a team-based game, unlike you could kind of get away a little bit last year playing a lot of one-on-one situations, just trying to beat guys. It looks like working the puck around, getting the puck on the point, and ripping shots is going to be a lot more of an effective technique. I mean, we were trying to do the stuff that we're used to doing in NHL 14, and none of it worked for the most part, except that time when you cheated and scored on me a couple times. that was but yeah, the collision system is pretty impressive. Yep. There was one. Did I take out your guy, or you took out? I took out your goalie.
Right.
And he hit him, and then he pushed off his shoulder and stepped over him. And it wasn't just like they fell down. Yeah. Which is kind of like how 14 was. If you hit a guy, he fell down, and you stood up, and you were ready to go. Yeah. It just felt a lot more. All the hits felt more organic, and everything felt a lot more realistic. Still weird stuff where I felt like sticks were clipping through each other, and
yes,
I don't know how the puck stayed on this guy's stick through whatever just happened and stuff like that. But I mean, that's to be expected.
Yeah, for all the good stuff that happened, and there was a lot of it, and I'm really excited for it. And I don't know if it's just because they want to make it a fun hockey game or not, but yeah, some of the long-time signatures of NHL, which is the puck doesn't just randomly, like if you watch a real NHL game, there's a lot of times where the puck is just kind of bouncing around or rolling around, and guys are going for it or fighting each other to get to it, and the pucks seem to be on our sticks a lot more. But I mean, that's how NHL has always been. And again, that may be a video game fun kind of a decision as opposed to a realistic one.
But that was something we noticed not happening in FIFA, where the ball was more alive and moving on its own, and you're working to it. So, but we still have to see how that happens when people are actually playing the game. Maybe they'll hate that the ball's bouncing all over the place and they're losing it easier or winning it easier. So
yeah, I mean these are the real. Like, I can imagine the discussions and the prototyping that go into these kind of things, like trying to balance fun versus realism, you know, and it's even in Madden too. Like, you know, we've talked about it before. I mean, Brian, you and I have had arguments about, you know, there should be more like penalties and there should be the random offsides, or there should be, you know, purposefully bad calls by the referees in the game. And, you know, there's so, you know, once you get to this level, it's kind of tough to figure out what works and what doesn't. But, yeah, I loved NHL. I'm not surprised I did. We already know that people coming out of E3, most of them had said NHL was the most impressive. I can't wait. I'm excited. Our press row league is going to be spectacular.
Yeah.
Brian, do you remain excited for NHL 15?
Well, I was gonna ask you guys. You know, at these events, it's probably not the best place to assess it, or even you don't really even have the opportunity to. But for me, capturing me into NHL this year, there are two things that are important. I think that's accessibility. I don't know if anything's been done to kind of improve that. But I was gonna also ask what you thought of the presentation, and I'm guessing commentary. You couldn't hear anything. So, yeah. But as far as NBC, the package, did that add much to what you were playing?
It really looked great.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like a television presentation. The graphics, the scoreboards, the benches looked really good. Like when I scored one of my 4 goals, you know, and the guy skated by the bench, each of the different guys had sort of different expressions as they're congratulating him. And, you know, he's doing the fist bump down the line. Like, to me, NHL 15 feels like there's going to be a lot of cool stuff you're going to see in the game in the second week, the third week, the fourth week, some slow burn kind of stuff. But yeah, the overall presentation I thought looked really, really good.
Yeah, and even in the pregame stuff, they even did like the live shot of the outside, not like, and it's real video. It's not Madden's cam flying over the stadium that you're about to play in. It's the real video that you would see before a game, where they're showing like, what was it, boats going down the stream outside of some stadium.
Well, it was three various rivers because we were playing in Pittsburgh, but, you know, a stream and a river.
Stream, it's all the same.
What's interesting about that?
The word stream is a river.
Because they do that in NBA 2K as well. Like, they'll put the real video outside. And the same thing happened in NBA 2K that happens in NHL, which is the real video looks a lot worse than the game because the real video isn't nearly as in high definition as in all of a sudden, like, you see the picture of the cities and stuff, and all of a sudden you're in the arena and everything is like crisp, so crisp. You know, it just jumps off of the screen. The visuals are so nice.
The rivers did look low def. Did it look low def, or was I
very low def?
My mind. It did, right?
It did, yes.
But the guys in the beginning of the game looked amazing. And other guy whose name we're not sure about.
Yeah, I mean, all three games looked great. I mean, I'm not surprised by it. I mean, nobody went to E3 and saw these games and said any of them looked terrible. But what's also interesting, and this is what is becoming more clear to me. EA is to me clearly. They've called an audible this year on their public relations and their marketing plans for these games. I don't know. Perhaps there are going to be a lot of announcements, but we've already had E3. We've had now the summer showcase. The games are going to start coming out in 45 days. Is when Madden hits. Thank you, TJ. Followed a week and a half later with NHL. Followed a couple weeks after that by FIFA. There's not a whole lot of time left for the PR cycle to announce new modes or new exciting kinds of things, and then they don't want the games to start stepping on each other. Like, you don't want to have a major NHL announcement the day before Madden, or you don't want to have a major FIFA announcement, the day before, the day after NHL comes out. I have the feeling that we may know, other than a few modes, and both NHL and FIFA guys said that there is still some more information coming about modes and features. But even Sean, when we were talking, he's like, we're going to go deeper into gameplay and deeper into the player models so that people can appreciate this even more. And with the Madden guys, we're going to have some more sort of announcements and discussions about these kind of things. But it seems to me that for whatever reason, this could be a corporate decision from the top. This could be happenstance because it's a month less development time between when they launch the PS4, and Xbox One versions in November. But it seems like there's hardly any of the back-of-the-box new modes and features. And these games, from a marketing standpoint, seems like it's all about gameplay. Brian, are you getting that same sense?
Yeah, I think, we're at this point where I don't know if I'd attribute it to having lost all credibility or what it might be, but I think what they're doing this year, and you're probably right. I mean, if you look at a game like Madden, which if you take the development cycle, which was, the game released in November for the next-gen consoles, and normally it releases at the end of August, so they lost that much. That's a significant amount of time, certainly more than the NBA games lost. That can affect that. They don't want to go in and break something, so they're going to be a little more conservative. But I think we're at this point where maybe they just have to prove it. And they have to get it into people's hands and prove that what they're saying, because maybe they're it's not working the way it used to as far as marketing. We've seen some of that drop off as far as cover votes and stuff, people losing interest in that, people losing interest in the blogs and videos, not really buying into everything early, deciding they're not going to buy the game before all this information even. That's happening more and more, so I think it's important that maybe they build credibility back up here by not overselling stuff and not putting new stuff into the game and neglecting other areas. Those are ways to hurt kind of that trust with consumers, whether it be, if you're a fan of, a career mode in Madden, playing as just a player through the career mode, I mean, you feel neglected after a few years of them not doing anything with it. So why would you be excited about someone adding a different mode, for instance, whether that be the Gauntlet, for example, or something else? It's just, I think there's this connection with consumers now that's different, and they have to kind of build that relationship back up.
So TJ, a few months ago before E3, I said, what if they just tell us the truth? What if instead of coming up with all this bull for the back of the box, things that we have derided for years, fight for the fumble and, just all of these different things. If you're a collector of sports video games and you look on the back of the box of these games, some of the things you look at, you're just like, you just kind of your shoulders drop. Man, really, this is what they spent all that time for?
Well, you don't need to look at the back of the box anymore. You can just pop in Madden 25, and every loading screen you get to see one of those back of the box features.
But, again, we said it before E3. What if they just tell us the truth? TJ, are they listening to us? Are they just like, you know what, we're doing it differently? We are focusing on making the game great. We're not going crazy with back of the box stuff, and we're just telling you what we're doing, and we're going to let the games speak for themselves. Is this where we're heading right now?
I think so, and I think NBA Live coming out and flopping even harder than they were really expecting is kind of like the start to that, where they had to go back on pretty much everything they said and have to go in and fix it one by one. So maybe now they're realizing that just get the gameplay right and make that 100% before we start tacking on all this other stuff. I mean, last year we had, what was it, for Madden and NCAA, we had the playbook schedule, and I think NBA Live. Actually, NBA Live is the perfect example of this, where I think they had a whole release schedule set up for everything, and they had all the dates, and then one by one those dates started disappearing, and I think even pieces of that list just started disappearing.
The whole thing was scrapped. Yeah.
Yeah, and that wasn't that even on NBA.com?
NBA.com. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure NBA.com was really excited about that. So I think I hope that they're bearing down and trying to get the gameplay to an amazing level so that we can move from there to making up more stuff.
Now, I know that people think that I'm just a EA guy, or that's not true. Certain people have told me, I'm too easy on EA, or I talk too much about Madden, or I'm a NHL guy, and all this stuff. But the bottom line is this: I play these games a lot. I really enjoy a lot about them, and I talk quite a bit about what I don't enjoy about them. If the Madden guys want to focus on nothing but blocking and tackling and improving the passing and improving the running and tightening up the visuals a little bit and keeping connected franchise virtually the same, for me, I am totally cool with that. I'm totally cool with that.
Can we not have guys retire after the draft? Because that's really frustrating.
That really killed you, man.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm serious, and I know that I don't speak for the majority of people. I'm not saying that I do. I'm saying for me, in my life right now, I play Madden 2 to 3 times a week in our connected franchise mode league, and I love it. And so if the game that comes out in August has even better gameplay and the connected franchise mode is virtually the same, I am cool with that. On the other hand, I could totally understand how a whole bunch of people would hate that. I get it. But from my perspective, if they are truly in Madden and in FIFA focusing on making what happens on the field, really investing their time in that, and not saying, okay, well, we got to have something for the back of the box, so we're going to take 2 or 3 guys away and make them do something, I am totally cool with that. Totally cool with that. And I think a lot of other people will be too, if it turns out to be the right decision. There will be many people, though, what this opens the door for are the roster update people. Oh, it's just a roster update. We know that the Madden and the FIFA that came out on the PS4 launches were far from roster updates. The fundamental games were much stronger than their PS3 360 counterpoints, and those games didn't have a whole lot of marketing or hype behind them. So I really think that we're seeing a pretty significant shift, and it's not necessarily a shift in the PR. I think it's a shift in the way that these games are being made, and the PR and the marketing has sort of had to adapt to that. Again, I don't know that, but it certainly feels that way. Go ahead, TJ.
I also think it's a shift in the way people are playing the games. I forget if it was at the PAX panel or somewhere around there, we were talking about how deep all these games are, and you could give all 3 of us a copy of the same game, and we can all go out and do something completely different.
Yes.
And if you tell me Madden 15, we're going to completely revamp CFM, I'm going to say, well, that's great. I don't play CFM. I just do Ultimate Team and do some other stuff over here. Or you're going to put this whole online franchise thing in FIFA, and I just play Pro Clubs. I don't really care about that. As long as you focus on the main gameplay, you're going to make everybody happier. But if you try to go and revamp a whole mode or do something crazy, you're going to make those people that do that mode happier, and a lot of people just aren't even really going to care that much. And those are the people that'll be like, well, maybe I'll just stick with last year's game and just go get a roster update from Operation Sports.
So, me, Rich Grisham, thinking, hey, maybe they're just focusing on making the game great. Now, let's take the cynics approach, and I'll go to Brian naturally for this.
Wait a second.
Is the real story that the FIFAs and the Maddens in particular are saying, you know what, people are playing these games longer, so we want to extract every last dime out of these games, out of FIFA 14 and Madden 25. So we're going to slow roll the PR even more because there's still 5 or 6 weeks left that we can get paid for Ultimate Team packs and for this and for that. Does that combine with the fact that maybe they're not doing a whole lot more because, you know what, as long as they keep Ultimate Team up and running, the development value or the return on investment goes up the less that they invest. From a cynic's perspective, Brian, could something like that be what's happening here with these games?
Well, I think it has to be considered a factor. If you look at how these games are designed now, often they're designed around this, especially if you look at NBA 2K14 on PS4, Xbox One, they're designed around that kind of central idea to bring in digital revenue. But then you also have in the EA games, which have, EA has shown really good restraint in keeping it just to Ultimate Team. But yeah, if you look at the pre-order bonuses, or if you look at the Ultimate Editions, which TJ and I have discussed a little bit, I've written an article about it kind of, and we went back and forth a few times on Twitter about it. They spread those out, and same with the pre-order bonuses. They spread them out so that they keep people hooked in as long as possible. With FIFA, it's like you get a pack or something for like 50 weeks. Okay, so to get your full value, you have to play the game pretty much year-round. So yeah, they're still making hundreds of millions of dollars in Ultimate Team, even as these games are starting to die out. There is that concern, and I think that you see that in the marketing, not just of the EA games, but 2K and even the show to an extent, that they don't want to create this perception that, okay, this game is done. Time to get over that game, get hyped for the next game too early, because when you do that, that would go against what they're trying to do in making as much money as possible. So I think to an extent, I don't think it necessarily is the only reason that we're hearing less about these games early, and that they're holding more information for later, and that we're seeing less until later on in the process. But I do think that that is absolutely a factor, that they can't create this sense that those games are done and it's time to move on.
And we are going to have a special episode of the Press Row podcast a week from today. It'll be released, featuring the three of us, along with Kat Bailey and Owen Good and Smith Sarkar and Chris Sanner. We're going to spend the entire episode talking about microtransactions in sports games, where we're going. And there are a lot of examples, there are a lot of points, there are a lot of angles. Kat Bailey wrote a terrific piece for US Gamer. And that, as soon as she tweeted it out and I read it, I'm like, yeah, there are multiple categories, multiple topics, multiple layers to talk about with microtransactions. We're going to dedicate an entire Press Row podcast to that next week. I'm really looking forward to that. A lot of good stuff that's going to come out of that, and so that is something to look forward to.
And you can start listening for free, but $1.99 after you get halfway through. It's going to be great.
I would love that.
Hey, for 99 cents, any viewer can upgrade my shirt. I'll switch something new, like a jersey or something, But you're gonna have to pay for that.
All right. How about we do some tweets, boys? Because we have some good ones in here. All right. Let's look at the first one. This one comes from our good friend Dennis Butler, the Man of Steel 3432. Is the Press Row podcast panel surprised there hasn't been a patch yet for MLB The Show PS4 edition? I did not realize that there has not been a patch for the PS4 MLB The Show edition. I've been too busy winning the National League in our online franchise, which, by the way, what a mess the online franchise is. I mean, MLB The Show, the game, is in many ways a thing of beauty, but good Lord, the online franchise, wow, the weird things happen with the schedules and with statistics, like
rotations, and games not posting results.
Craziness. Absolutely.
Getting your playoff simmed, and somehow Rich is going to win the NL championship. It's ridiculous.
Some things are good. But yeah, I didn't realize that there had not been one. Clearly there hasn't. Brian, your thoughts?
Yeah, this had been on my mind recently, and so it didn't surprise me that a couple people actually sent in asking about that. So where the PS4 version has been out for over 2 months now. Now, the PS3 version did receive a patch before the PS4 version came out. In theory, that kind of applied, it wasn't its own patch, but that kind of applied and improved the game before it came out on the PS4. So I think what people are looking for is something to improve the game beyond what they have now, obviously. And there are issues with the game, and the extent to which a patch is going to fix them is questionable. We've had things like online like server updates for online play, which haven't, online play in the show, it's not great, and
No.
those updates haven't really done much of worth. So, yeah, it's surprising. I know they're working on a patch. They continue to say they're working on a patch, but we're at the All-Star break now, and even though the game came out late on the PS4, it's still rough to think, okay, we're at the All-Star break, and there isn't a patch. There hasn't really been anything to. There's no game-breaking type bug, right? There's issues.
Yeah.
But
That's
is there
like
anything?
the thing.
It's not NBA 2K14 where people couldn't play the game,
Hmm.
or or any number of things that have caused patches to come out faster than maybe the process they're going through. It just seems like maybe they're building one patch and that's going to be it, and they're just taking their time on it, and they're thinking there's nothing really pressing beyond online, and a patch isn't going to fix online anyway.
TJ, your thoughts?
I agree. I think they just need to fix that strike zone thing because
Yeah, what is up with that?
that's really annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how many people have pointed that out beyond you at first, TJ, and then I definitely notice it. I don't know if it's being discussed on forums or not, but yeah, I mean, the strike zone is misaligned, and that really screws things up.
I was in a tie game, and since I'm playing quick counts in my my franchise, I had 3 batters come up in a row with full counts, and I threw pitches that were completely in the strike zone. They called them all balls, and they scored.
And it's important to point out you have the variable strike zone turned off, right?
Yeah, I turned off all that stuff to make sure that wasn't what was happening.
Yeah, before someone says, "Oh, you have to turn that off, or else you're going to get the umps, making their own decisions and being off on their calls occasionally." Yeah, that's not the case. That's with it turned off. One side of the strike zone. It's just misaligned, and that's only PS4, not PS3 or Vita.
Yeah, and those were all fastballs, but you even see it with like a curveball, which it ended in the strike zone, and if it was on the outside part of the plate from a right-handed pitcher with a right-handed batter, the whole trajectory of the ball was in the strike zone. So it wasn't like, oh, it ended in the strike zone, but it didn't went around the plate. So it's just really frustrating, and they really got to fix that because something little like that is the kind of thing that's going to make me be like, yeah, okay, I don't really want to play this. I'm going to keep getting screwed like this.
Well, I will tell you this. For all of the issues, and there are many with MLB The Show, I have, excuse me, I have enjoyed the PS4 MLB The Show more than any baseball game I've ever played.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. It is not perfect. It's got issues, but oh my gosh, I love this game. I love it so much more than I thought I was going to. I am playing it almost every day. It gets better the more I play it. Like all of the things that you notice when you first start playing it sort of fade in the background, and I just appreciate it more and more. And I've gotten better at it too. Like I've really learned how to hit. I can hit in the show for the first time in my life. And I'm better at pitching. I'm much better at fielding. Brian Weedai, you changed my whole life with that one little tip. I'm telling you, I love the show. And if they ever make it work,
Mm-hmm.
if they ever make it work to where the online experiences are as good as we have in most of our other games that we collectively play, forget it. It'll be a thing of beauty. Mm-hmm. All right, some other ones here. Let's see. What do we got here? This one is from Citizen Chad. It says, moving the Madden release date back to July. I actually brought this up when interviewing the fellow who was showing us the gauntlet. I was like, any talk about moving it up? Now he's a line producer, so he doesn't get involved in those kind of things. To me, it makes perfect sense. I can see why they didn't do it this year because they were already sort of, they cut off a few weeks of development with the late release in November of the game. From a perspective of getting a little more bang for their buck and spreading out a crowded release calendar a little bit, I would not be the least bit surprised if they kind of go back to the old days when Madden comes out at the start of preseason as opposed to right before the start of the regular season. TJ, what do you think?
I would say that's not a good idea, mainly because the same problem I have with MLB The Show, when it comes out too early, you're waiting on those real rosters to actually start what you're going to do, and like I had when I got the Vita version of MLB The Show, I got to a point where I was like, okay, I don't have real rosters, and I'm not going to start with some fake ones until the real rosters come out. So I'm just kind of put this down and not really touch it. And I really stopped playing the Vita version after the PS4 version came out. And if they put out Madden that early, am I going to start playing Ultimate Team? I mean, they're going to have problems with rosters of what cards are going to go in, and I mean, they're going to have people not in the game that you're going to want to have in the game when you actually start your franchises and stuff. And I think you're just going to be out too far for something where rosters are so important.
TJ, I think you're putting actual facts into a very simple argument that it should just come out earlier. Brian Weedai, what do you think?
So Madden originally would always come out the second Tuesday of August, and then they moved it back to the end of August, not just because they saw an increase in sales and kept it there when they did that, but it was because of NCAA football, which is now gone. So they wanted to give NCAA football 2 more weeks to sell. And it worked for them to have 2 football games. I mean, it makes little sense to have them so close together that it's more difficult for people to justify buying both. Now, the issue you have now at this end of August date is you go Madden at the end of August. 2 weeks later, it's NHL. A week after that, it's FIFA. 2 weeks after that, it's the NBA games. So if you're EA, you're looking and you're saying, in a 5-week span, we release 4 of our main sports games, Madden, NHL, FIFA, and NBA Live.
And not to mention, there's a whole bunch of AAA big games coming out that whole time, too. Like, Destiny and probably a Call of Duty and probably the next-gen GTA 5 and dozens of other games that I can't even think of right now.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a ton of competition in that area. And consumer dollars are limited. People make just choices. And so if you stack all those games together and then you say, as a huge sports fan, not everybody is going to buy all these games anyway, but the people who are interested in, let's say they're interested in all of them, they're going to make a choice for their top 1 or 2.
Right.
Most people aren't going to buy all 5 sports games that come out in a month span. It's just not plausible, a scenario for people that makes much sense. So you get people making decisions, and instead if you spread it out more across the year, or at least move Madden towards the front end of August, it allows those games to breathe a little more. Because the competition in September, October, and then November is just insane.
What makes more sense to me, frankly, is to move FIFA up before the kickoff of the European football season, because FIFA comes out almost a month after the season starts, and that's weird. Mm-hmm. If anything, you move FIFA up to early August, and you keep Madden in late August and NHL in that first week of September slot. That's what that seems to me like the most logical thing to do.
That would make a lot of sense. I mean, especially if you look at internationally, the games that sell overseas, NHL does, in some territories, but it's FIFA and NBA 2K is a big one overseas too. You want to space those out, and so it's not even just United States and how we anticipate sales for here, but worldwide. And so I think it would be, like you said, move FIFA up then. That would make a lot of sense too.
Because we're always engrossed in Madden, but this year I'm going to be even more excited in early August when Everton starts their season, and it's going to be kind of weird that I'm going to not be able to play as the new guys. I'm going to, for a month. So that's weird. So, all right, next one. This one comes from another good friend of the show. We got a lot of good friends of the show. This is awesome. From Cameron Arian, he says, you could talk about how 2K promised 2K15 news and delivered nothing. Yeah, I sort of recall, and I think you mentioned something about this, Brian. Wasn't Ronnie 2K talking about doing a live stream or something related to 2K15? And then is that what he's talking about here, or did I misconstrue something?
Yeah, no, it is. You're right. I mean, we have all these examples, and we want to have a show where we do a big segment about kind of the way these companies handle themselves in social media and treat consumers in social media. This is just one of many examples where it was, kind of abused to an extent, and they advertised a big live stream. They said there was going to be 2K15 news in it, so people got excited. They planned this chunk of time to turn to this live stream that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise. And then they did the live stream, and there was nothing on 2K14 or 2K15. There was absolutely nothing. And so, and it wasn't even just 2K, but they had the YouTube crowd that are part of the marketing campaign this year. In commercial, they were even in a commercial, some of them. So they're part of the marketing campaign this year, and they were promoting it as some big news for everybody to tune in. And so when you mislead people, and in a lot of cases they do this, they straddle this line where you could say they misled them or not, just to increase your social metrics, and in this case live stream views, and to tie people in and get their follows. I mean, it creates a sense of mistrust, and it's frustrating for people.
TJ, you're not going to play NBA 2K15, so...
I don't know. I saw Shaq kiss a man on the live stream, so I'm pretty excited.
All right.
So we should take that and break it down and figure out what it is. Why would Shaq be there?
All right. Another one from Cameron Arian, who says, why does EA waste time adding a mode like the Gauntlet in a sim football game? So this is exactly what we were talking about before, right? Like, some people are excited to play the Gauntlet. I think EA has clearly identified that they want to teach people how to play the game, and that the Gauntlet is sort of the end game for a whole series where you are rewarded for going through and learning how to play the game. There's no pleasing everybody, clearly, right? Some people are going to like what you do. Some people are not going to like what you do. TJ, when you hear a consumer say something like that, you saw the skills challenges in the Gauntlet. What's your reaction?
Well, the thing you got to remember is, while Madden looks like a sim game, there's no casual game going up against it. So Madden kind of has to cover that for pretty much everybody, which is why, like with NCAA we had one-button controls. And NHL, there's nothing competing against it, so NHL still has the two-button controls that they go back to. I think the Gauntlet mode and stuff in there is to get the good players to be a lot better. Hopefully that's what it's actually going to do. I think the reason that they're marketing it so much is there's not a huge ton of stuff to market this year, so they have something that they can show off with all the guys on the field, and there's visual things that you can look at to sell those pictures and tell people about it, and you're not going to get that showing people the new play calling screen and stuff like that. But Madden can't just be for the sim gamer. There's not enough of them. The people that play super hardcore Madden, there's way less of them than the casual gamer that is going to like something like the Gauntlet mode and all those training things.
Yeah, it really, to me, this is a matter of perception, and that's why earlier when we were discussing it, I said the issue isn't so much that there's this mode in there and it might be arcadey, but it's the timing that they put it out before other news that people are waiting on, when the crowd that kind of would be into this type of thing probably aren't paying attention. So I think it was a timing issue, but the perception is what matters. And when you say, why is this not a sim focus? Where's the sim focus for Madden type of thing? You can look at, we had these discussions about EA PGA Tour now after their E3 showing with giant battleships on your golf course and stuff, and that didn't mean that the game was going to be just an arcade game now. But that is the perception that a lot of people have of it, because that's just the way they were marketed to, and EA allowed them to get that feel for the game and this negative connotation attached to it now. And that's, again, you go back to the Gauntlet. It's important to have a fun way for people to learn how to play the game, but early July and before you have other important news out on different modes and maybe a deeper dive into gameplay, it wasn't the right fit for right now.
Another one. This one comes from, let's see here. What do we got here? This one comes from Stephen Evans, Lucky7777. Speaking of other modes, he says, can we get some info on Madden ZFM mode? And I say, yes, I would also like some information on Madden ZFM mode. I asked about it yesterday and was told they're not quite ready to talk about it. I don't know whether it's going to be a big thing or whether it's just going to be, sort of in that last week or two before the game comes out. You kind of just get those lists of things that aren't big enough to sort of make the huge hit. So I don't know. I'm obviously a huge CFM guy. That's what we play. Again, I'm not a huge CFM guy in that I get totally into it and go crazy and raise beer prices and hot dogs. I'm just in it because it's the infrastructure that we play our games in. I do like the fact that, for example, we can practice with our teams now in between the week, which was something they added last year. Like, I would like certain things. Like, I would like to be able to change playbooks in practice mode. I'd like to be able to practice 20 times in between games if I wanted to. So there's like some fundamental detail stuff that I'd like to know. I don't know if I'm one of 20 people or one of 25,000 people that want that kind of stuff, but that's my thing. So I want to know too, my man. And right now we don't have a schedule or an information for when that's going to come out. It's not for lack of trying. TJ, do you think we're going to get any more CFM stuff coming, or is this going to be one of those things where, yeah, once it comes out, we'll just sort of dig in and find out ourselves?
Yeah, if there's not going to be anything crazy big, I'm sure we'll just get another list of all the 187 things that we fixed in CFM that you didn't realize were broken last year. That's probably going to be it. I feel like if there was something big, they would have already said it.
Me too.
So I wouldn't be expecting a whole ton.
Well, yeah. If you look at the history of how EA releases information on Madden, which I did earlier today, franchise mode, connected careers in Madden 13, connected franchise in Madden 25, those were May and June info releases in the past 2 years. So they're behind schedule, and we discussed that earlier. This idea that maybe their marketing schedule has changed fundamentally, and maybe connected franchise now is considered something they want to put out information on in August instead, or something of that nature, just trying to capture a different type of crowd at a different period of the schedule there. So yeah, they're behind, and normally we would know what's going on with connected franchise, which means either there's something compelling coming, or maybe there just isn't, and it's just minor details. Like for me, Rich, you listed off your stuff. For me, the most important thing would be the presentation in game,
right,
during our franchises, and seeing things like the standings come up or stats come up on screen, and that they kind of talked about when they mentioned presentation earlier. Maybe not to the extent I was hoping for, but maybe we'll see something. If there's going to be something interesting for that, I suspect it would be a late July, early August now, based on how they're moving things around.
This one is for you, TJ. This one comes from another good friend, Desbang, Darby, my man Darby, who says, did you get a sense of whether the AI would be smarter about offsides in FIFA 15? It's infuriating in 14.
I didn't really notice them run offsides too much.
I
did notice them running off a lot in FIFA 14 when I was playing earlier today.
Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, they're making bad. Like when you're playing, like I play a lot of pro clubs, and the computer will try to pass to itself when it's offsides sometimes, and that's extremely frustrating because you would think the computer would know, but you want it to be realistic. So, one of those things.
All right, couple more quickies. This one looks like one more quickie. This one from Go Madden. He says, do you think with NCAA football gone, EA might go back to the head coach games?
I like the screenshot there with Owen's answer.
Owen says, may I butt in to say, not a chance.
Yeah.
Do you agree with Owen, Brian Weedite?
Yeah, well, they're trying to bring elements of head coach into franchise mode in Madden, because head coach games didn't sell. That's more of, there's a market for management games, but it's not significant enough to interest EA at this point, unless it's FIFA's really the only one.
It's not there's not a market for management games on consoles. There's definitely one on PC.
That's the issue, and EA they don't have a real interest in reaching out to PC as far as sports games go. They made that decision years and years ago.
TJ, do you want a head coach?
No, never at all. I do want that headset that came with it that one time. Other than that, I'm not really interested. I think I had a copy one year.
Oh, I did. I had one.
Oh, it was good. It was a pretty good game too.
It was not a game for me.
Right.
I'm not a roster management guy anyway. I'm not a draw the plays up and see them executed guy. But it was a well put together game. Like, it worked well. It knew what it wanted to be, and it was that. It wasn't my kind of game. So, well, all right, boys. What do you think? I think this was a show.
It was a show. Yes, technically, it was a show. Correct.
Yes. Well, so before we go, just want to say a couple things real quick. Number one, make sure that you please go download and listen to the latest Press Row podcast, which has me, yours truly, Rich Grisham, as well as that guy, TJ Lauerman, spending some quality time in Manhattan yesterday with the developers from Madden 15 and NHL 15 and FIFA 15. It was a really fun show, and then Sumit Sarkar and TJ and I sort of wrap up our thoughts. It actually came out really well, TJ. I was, as you know, I was anxious and nervous about all of the various trying to record with all the noise and stuff, and somehow it came out sounding good. So I'm very happy about that. Also, make sure you do what I do every day, which is go visit OperationSports.com, the wonderful people who make the Press Row podcast come to life. Make sure that you go visit PastaPadre.com every day like I do to find out what the most important story in sports games is. And also make sure you drop by TJ Lauerman's site, That Sports Gamer, who's always putting interesting takes on various things out there. And, of course, TJ's got his leagues going on as well, so there's always something happening over
he always be live streaming.
That's true.
I always be live streaming. It's true.
It's true. He does. So, hey, thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you for being a part of this awesome community that we continue to build around sports games. I am continually delighted and excited by the people who listen to the show, who watch the show, who interact over the course of the last 3 years. We've really built this community into something that has a voice. Not only do listeners and fans interact with me and with Brian and with TJ on a regular basis, but at various points over the last couple of weeks, I've had the guys who make all of the games that we talk about mention, hey, I heard what you guys said about this, or I listened to the show when you talked about that. So somehow or some way we're having, I don't want to say some influence, but we're certainly being heard. The guys who make the games that we love recognize that we, and when I say we, I don't mean just Brian and TJ and I, but we as a community collectively are, we matter, and what we say counts, and they want to delight us. They want us to be happy. They want us to love their games, and they're facing a lot of things, and we're facing a lot of things. It's tough to get the resources on their side. It's tough to pay the $60 on our side, so there's always going to be that push and pull, but man, we've created some really great stuff around Press Row and Pasta Padre and That Sports Gamer and Operation Sports. So let's keep it going. So thank you, everybody, for helping make this community what it is, and let's keep it growing. And to that end, let's do this again in a couple of weeks. What do you say, boys?
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah,
all right.
We will do that.
So for Brian Weedite from Pasta Padre and TJ Lauerman from That Sports Gamer, I am Rich Grisham from the Internet. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks.